One of the best places to get started is by customizing your greeting. Here you'll find the first few messages that will be sent out once your bot has been initialized. So once you have greeted your user with your custom greet text, I prefer asking the question in a different topic. So from here, you can navigate the user to a different topic. So let me first create the topic. So as I navigate to the topic screen, as you may notice, I have deleted the pre-existing topics and I'll be creating new custom one. Let's call this query. And this does not require any trigger phase because we'll be moving here from the greeting text. Let's now get into designing it. Here you can ask your user what his query is and then capture the query, and we would basically be passing this query into Lewis. So I'm selecting a question here. So I'm just typing in the response that the user is going to see once they're greeted, naming the variable appropriately. And here is where we will be calling our Lewis. So for that, we will have to use Microsoft Flow, or now called Power Automate. Before we start customizing our action that needs to be called, we will have to first configure the Luis.AI. So let me go back to Lewis. Looks like our Lewis app is ready. I would create another video explaining how to create and what are these intents and entities and other details. So for now, let's get started. Let me open Dynamics 365 first and navigate to the knowledge article entity. So here is where you will find the pre-existing data that comes with your trial instance. The knowledge article entity basically holds questions for which you have pre-configured answers to it. So as you may notice, some of these questions are pertaining to clarifications on problems. And based on these questions, I have created 5 intents. So the questions were mostly based on instructions, setup, support, and maintenance for the products they're looking for. So when a user sends in a query to the bot, these intents help us identify what the person is talking about. Let me start by configuring an intent. So the best place would be to use advanced find and export all these questions into an Excel sheet. This would be much easier for you to copy paste the intents, so the utterance text into the intents later, which we will be using to train the Lewis model. So let me just paste in these intents. Make sure you paste in only questions related to instructions, or you can also try pasting in other forms of questions. Now that we have our intents ready, we can start training the entities. Entities are basically data that we want to identify from an intent. The best place to get started is using the entity highlighter here. So you can select the text that you want to identify as an entity. Here I'll be selecting all the products that the question is about. So let's start identifying the products. So this is a product that we're talking about. Since this is the first time, we have to create the entity. So let me type in it as product. So we are using the ML based entities. I would explain much of this in detail while I create a video for configuring Lewis. All the ad descriptors and everything would be I will explain it in much detail in a future video. So let me identify all the products within these utterances which I've created. Lewis should be utilizing this initial training to identify what the products are and where in the sentence that they appear. So later, this data would be used to identify even if you given an utterance which has not been used in the training set. So similar to this, you will have to fill out all the other utterances as well. And once you have all the utterances filled, you can start training the model. So the first time it takes a few minutes, but as you keep progressing, it's much faster. So once your model is trained, next step would be to publish it. So since this is a trial instance, you can publish it in both the staging slot and the production slot. And we would basically be using the production slot for accessing it via the flow. So once your training is done, you can access the Azure resource endpoint. This particular page is important as you will be coming back to this page once you have your flow ready. The application setting page is where you can rename it if you want. Now,